Bapak dan Ibu, Mas Mbak semuanya, selamat datang di Simposium Khatulistiwa 2024. Pada malam hari ini dengan agenda keynote speaker. Yang mana keynote speaker ini nanti akan dimoderatori oleh Mbak idola kita semua, Direktur Yayasan Biennale Jogjakarta. Boleh tepuk tangan? Bapak dan Ibu, Mas Mbak semua, Simposium Khatulistiwa 2024 ini mengambil tema Mupakara Kerja Perawatan sebagai Praktik Solidaritas, diselenggarakan oleh Yayasan Biennale Yogyakarta dengan dukungan Kementerian Pendidikan, Kebudayaan, Riset dan Teknologi Indonesia, Dana Indonesiana, Lembaga Pengelola Dana Pendidikan, Dinas Kebudayaan Daerah Istimewa Yogyakarta, Taman Budaya Yogyakarta, Paniradia Keistimewaan, Universitas Negeri Yogyakarta, Institut Seni Indonesia Yogyakarta, dan Kampung Mataraman. Tak lupa, agenda kita pada malam hari ini juga didukung oleh media partner yang turut membantu menyukseskan acara Simposium Khatulistiwa pada malam hari ini. Yakni kami berterima kasih kepada Buku Seni Rupa Harian Jogja, LPM Ekspresi, Magdalena Mayang.co, Radar Jogja, Visiting Jogja, dan LPM Natas. Tanpa perlu berlama-lama agar kita bisa pulang cepat untuk tidur, mari bersama kita undang yang terhormat Ibu Alia Swastika selaku Direktur Yayasan Biennale Yogyakarta selaku moderator pada malam hari ini. Tepuk tangan yang meriah.
Selamat malam semuanya. Kayaknya masih suasana 5 menit sebatang 2 batang habis makan malam nih ya. Yuk teman-teman yang mungkin masih berada di area makan di luar, kita bisa merapat karena sebentar lagi kita segera memulai sesi keynote lecture yang kedua yang hari ini akan disampaikan oleh teman baik saya yang kebetulan sekali ada di Indonesia ketika situasi darurat terjadi, yaitu Murph Espina. So, thank you very much for joining us for the second day of keynote lectures in the Symposium Khatulistiwa 2024. So tonight, we will have a special guest, my good friend from the Philippines, that happened to be here in the emergency situation. So it's the right time to have him here. So I invite Murph Espina to come to the stage. Tepuk tangan untuk Murph semuanya. Should I read your bio? Oh, no. No, but I want to introduce you to the audience here. So this is Murph from Manila. Murph has been active in contemporary art scene in Southeast Asia for the last 25 years. And actually his approach and his working methods is really based on collectivity and community engagement, and also looking to contemporary art practice from very diverse mediums. So I know that he did lots of research, not only on visual art, contemporary art practice, but also music, sound, archiving the moving image, the history of moving image in the Southeast Asia. So lots of various different things. So tonight, I think Murph will be presenting 2 projects, research project that also coming as his curatorial methodology. I think it will be very interesting to connect his materials later with our conversation last night about the Black Brothers and Mambesak, where Nancy Yowie already presented how the Black Brothers movement and then also Mambesa from Papua, from transnational perspective as a resistance, and from the response from the audience last night, we can also hear how these resistance voices become very big inspiration for younger generation. Like I'm very inspired last night when Berto, one of the artists from Papua that now based in Jogja, mentioning how for his generation, the inspiration from Black Brothers group and the Mambesa really give and shaping as well the collective memory of his generation, and this give their confidence to be able to work and to be part of the art ecosystem, and at the same time also to compete with artists from outside Papua. So I think this is very strong statement to look into how music, popular music, or more grassroots local music, it's really shaping also collective cultural identity. So Murph will present somehow similar trajectories on how music and sound can be the voice of resistance, and at the same time also strengthen like the movement from different indigenous communities in the Philippines, how they use the sound archive and traditional or indigenous music as a cultural statement. So please, Murph, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Aliyah. I'm. Uh, it's hard to replace Marian Pastor Rosas. Yeah, thank you, Aliyah, for inviting me here, and also to Christy and like Liquid Architecture for actually giving a.
I need to announce the translation before
Oh,
you continue. Untuk teman-teman yang membutuhkan translasi ke bahasa Indonesia, ada kan ya malam ini? Ya, silakan menghubungi meja panitia dan di situ teman-teman bisa tersambung ke Zoom yang akan menerjemahkan secara simultan kuliah dari Murph malam ini. Jadi silakan menghubungi panitia untuk kode Zoom-nya.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So, as Aliyah was mentioning, I'm presenting two projects. One of them took advantage of an existing archive, mostly from the Paradon records, which was acquired by the Smithsonian in the U.S. And the other one was an archive that was prompted as an act of solidarity and like an instinct of preservation during the lockdown in 2021. So it's a two-part title. It connoting the two projects. The first project, the translation is where? Over there. Okay. So the title is inspired by this release called Promises of the Storm, which was one part of the many releases that was produced by the label Paradon. So Paradon started in 1970, and they were based in New York City by two activists, musicians, Irwin Silver and Barbara Dane. Barbara Dane is still alive. She's over 90 now. And I had I was fortunate to interview her during the lockdown, partly because we were researching some old activist recordings that they released from the Philippines in the 70s, 80s, and also because of this project which was a commissioned project in Hong Kong that looked at activism and migration. But among the many other releases that they had was Caravan. Caravan was a democratic Thai rock group that was actually had some controversies with the monarchy. And unfortunately, they didn't have any Indonesian releases. So from Asia, they had several Vietnamese releases, several Chinese releases, one Thai album, and one Filipino album. And I wanted to connect this project to the history of protest in Hong Kong, where the project was commissioned. It was for a commission project with Parasite in last year in 2023. And if you're aware, like, of the umbrella movement and the recent protests and the crackdowns that happened, there's several like songs. Several songs have been banned that are linked to the protest movement, and a lot of the protest leaders had to flee Hong Kong. Several are actually now in jail. One of the songs that was recently banned was "Glory to Hong Kong." So, because of the push of the mainland Chinese government, this song was actually taken out of several platforms, but it still circulates uninformally and illegally. And this is Barbara Dane in a protest march in the 70s. And this is like one of the many Paradon Records releases from around the world. And Paradon, they were mostly releasing a lot of South American recordings because, one, like, they were Spanish speakers, and also the proximity to the U.S. because you have to remember back in the 70s and 80s, like, travel was much harder. So the project was a means to address this particular juncture in history where the protests movement has died down, and it's and Hong Kong was in a state of flux. So using the Paradon archives data as a data set, and also the music that was actually literally banned in Hong Kong, like "Glory to Hong Kong." I used an AI called Rave to train to learn these of these revolutionary music from, like, pretty much a 30-year period or over a 30-year period, and to translate them into the sound of storms and monsoon. So through this act of abstraction, like, the archive can be experienced in another way. One thing that is shared by the Philippines and Hong Kong is always a season of storms, and storms come and go like revolutions. So maybe I'll play a little bit so you have an idea how the AI experiment turned out. was it only sounds clean because you had to train the AI several times to learn different data sets. When you trained it into a large data set with different time signatures and different musical styles, it would come out really bad. It was just chaos. Because what happened was you had two data sets. One was trained on 30 years of protest music, and one was 3 hours of monsoon and like typhoons. And the project was an idea of as an experiment in transmutation. How do you translate the sound of protest into the sound of typhoon? And it sounded really chaotic. So one way to clean it up was to identify certain tendencies in the different musics. A lot of the musics were meant for marching. So this is what the AI interpreted. That like even though there was no sound of feet marching, the AI interpreted the protest music translation into like this. It sounds like people marching in the rain, which was an interesting interpretation. So this is the data set. All that. It's a few hundred songs. Few hundred songs, yes. And the plants were actually another failed experiment because as a lot of people left Hong Kong because they were escaping possible jail and detention by the Chinese state, they left a lot of things behind. So the initial idea was to look at the things that they left behind, and I was thinking maybe they left around a lot of plants and maybe they're dead now. But actually, we were very surprised that the plants that they left behind to their friends actually thrived. As an was interesting act of care, because now that these people are in exile, their friends who were left behind actually took better care of the plants than they would have. And that concludes one project. The other project is a collaboration with two indigenous groups from the Philippines, the Manobo and the Tinananon, who occupy the interior lands of the Pantaron range of Mindanao, which is very resource rich. So you see here the mining corporations that are extracting and displacing these peoples. During the lockdown, several of the indigenous leaders who were basically internally displaced by the state were trying to dispute the capital list and government claims to their ancestral domains. Some of them were assassinated by state agents and by corporate agents. And actually, several of the sanctuaries were frozen, and like several of the allies were detained, if not assassinated. So this is actually still an ongoing case. Like there's still ongoing state encroachment into ancestral territories. So during the lockdown, one group was in a sanctuary, in a church sanctuary in Davao City in 2021, and through some support of of several organizations, including the Observatory from Singapore, OCAC in Taiwan. We managed to do a series of workshops, recording workshops, with the elders who were in the sanctuary, as well as the children. So a lot of the children were actually born in refugee camps, and they have never experienced their forest life. So to address a kind of lack in research and also education, we asked to do the workshops around forest calls. So there are different forest calls that are meant for play or for hunting, which I think the linguistic term is non-lexical vocable. So these are non-words used in everyday speech or everyday communication. The Manobo have a rich oral tradition. They have a rich song tradition. Their language has been well documented. So has their music, but not so much these non-words. So through this act of workshops and cataloging, several of the elders, we were able to catalog a set of like 30 animals. So each sound will be related to a different animal in the forest, animal, insect. And from this, they taught it also to the children. And we made the collage. So it's basically a forest of human voices. And one of the suspicions are, because a lot of the, like, not only are the people endangered, but so are the animals. Some of these animals have not been seen in years. So the suspicion is that some of these animals may actually be extinct, and their sonic imprint memory persists through the memories of these tribal elders. So I'll let you hear a little bit of this project. Oh, cannot play file. Okay. There was a video, but it doesn't play. I'm done. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Much. So maybe I summarize a bit in Indonesian just to continue the conversations as well. Jadi Morph tadi menampilkan dua project di mana dia terlibat. Yang pertama adalah project Paradon yang inisiasinya berbasis di New York, dan mereka mengumpulkan album-album atau rilisan musik yang berbasis pada lagu-lagu revolusi. Jadi ada, terutama mereka mendapatkan banyak material itu dari kawasan Amerika Selatan. Mungkin juga karena ada banyak komunitas Amerika Selatan di Amerika sendiri, jadi secara kedekatan lebih gampang untuk mendapatkan sumber-sumbernya. Dan sayangnya dari Asia sebenarnya belum banyak material-material lagu revolusi yang dikumpulkan dalam proyek ini. Yang sudah sempat masuk adalah lagu-lagu revolusi dari Thailand and what is the other one from Asia?
China and the Philippines.
Jadi baru Thailand, Cina dan Filipina. Jadi memang mungkin dari pertukaran semacam ini kita bisa submit ya lagu-lagu Mambesa, Black Brothers yang kemarin kita diskusikan untuk menjadi bagian dari arsip semacam ini. Nah dari situ Murph kemudian diajak untuk mentransformasi arsip-arsip lagu ini dan mengubahnya melalui teknologi AI, mengubah lagu-lagu ini menjadi suara hujan dan badai gitu. Terutama juga ini berkaitan dengan inisiasi sebuah proyek di Hong Kong yang pada saat itu mereka masih berada dalam euforia untuk merayakan revolusi kaum muda Hong Kong, kalau teman-teman ingat Umbrella Project gitu ya. Jadi di Hong Kong sendiri juga selalu ada ancaman typhoon. Jadi ada ide untuk mengubah lagu-lagu yang berada dalam arsip Paradon ini menjadi suara hujan. Dan tadi kalau tadi Murph bilang sebenarnya kalau karena dia harus train AI-nya lebih sering, jadi belum sempurna, tetapi kalau dibaca prototipenya sudah terdengar semacam ada suara orang-orang berbaris di bawah hujan yang lebat. Lalu proyek kedua yang dia presentasikan adalah kerjanya bersama beberapa kolektif dari Asia, dari Singapura dan Taiwan, di mana mereka bekerja dengan komunitas kalau di sini masyarakat ulayat gitu ya, yang terkena ancaman dampak perluasan kawasan pertambangan gitu. Jadi ada proses deforestasi yang sangat parah dan pada akhirnya warga ini harus direlokasi, harus pindah dan kehilangan kehidupan hutannya. Lalu ide dari proyek ini adalah merekam suara hewan atau membayangkan ulang karena mereka harus pergi dari hutannya, pergi tinggal di pengungsian sehingga tercerabut gitu ya dari lingkungan hidup di mana mereka biasa tinggal dan termasuk misalnya kedekatan dengan pohon, dengan tanaman, dengan hewan gitu. Nah, ide proyeknya adalah merekam suara-suara hewan sebagai bagian dari ingatan kolektif, tetapi suara ini ditirukan oleh warga sekitar gitu. Jadi kayak tadi suara anjing menggonggong atau suara serigala, suara babi hutan mungkin. Aku tidak akan menirukan karena susah banget. Tapi itu tadi yang teman-teman dengar misalnya adalah gambaran dari bagaimana warga menirukan suara-suara itu. Termasuk misalnya yang mereka ajak untuk berpartisipasi adalah anak-anak dari usia muda yang mereka lahir di shelter gitu ya dan tidak punya kesempatan untuk menikmati kehidupan hutan seperti generasi sebelumnya. Jadi mereka mencoba untuk membangun relasi berkaitan dengan ingatan atas kehidupan hutan ini dan menyalurkannya gitu ya melalui kepada generasi yang lebih muda. Jadi and it was presented already the project.
Yeah, the files didn't load, but I can show you the files. This is in Abu Dhabi, 421.
421 ya. So this is the animals project, right?
Yes.
Ya. Jadi ini hasil presentasinya. Mereka seperti setting that's it.
These are the names of the activists, indigenous activists that have been killed since 2016.
Ya. Jadi selama perlawanan mereka menghadapi perusahaan-perusahaan tambang itu sudah ada banyak orang yang meninggal, ada banyak orang yang di penjara gitu dan di situ nama-nama orang yang gugur gitu ya karena memperjuangkan tanah mereka. Thank you. So I think like if we go back again also to Nancy's lecture last night about the Mambesa Black Brothers and to see all these songs and movement as the form of resistance, like, and also how we can archiving and collecting memories of the younger generation who were greatly inspired by these two movements, and then to look into the presentation by Murph, and we can see there is also slightly transformation from memory, from archive, being activated into a new different form. So I think the idea of carrying, the idea of taking care of memory in the end is not enough only just like making the storage or just keep it in like the cabinet, but the projects by Murph also showing us it is important to activate as well the memory, to activate the archive, so it can be transformed into more like maybe abstract, more to create a new imagination for the younger generation. And also this archive can be interpreted from people from different background, right? For example, the archive from Paradon, from many different area or many different part of the world, then being connected to what happened in Hong Kong Revolution, for example. So I think it's interesting to open the discussion about this context on this idea of archiving, to take care of the memory, take care of the archive, and at the same time also thinking about the activation of this archive as a part of, I think I really like to see how it creates a new sense of imagination. Yeah, if anyone wants to respond, atau ada yang mau menanggapi, boleh berbicara dalam bahasa Indonesia, nanti saya juga bisa bantu translate. Mungkin ini juga menarik untuk dikaitkan dengan diskusi kita tadi pagi ya, yang sesi pertama. Di sesi pertama tadi kita banyak bicara tentang konservasi arsip, kita banyak bicara tentang bagaimana warga komunitas sebenarnya juga melakukan kerja-kerja pengarsipannya sendiri tanpa harus diinisiasi oleh institusi formal gitu, institusi negara gitu, dan pada saat yang sama selalu ada tantangan untuk merawat arsip itu gitu. Jadi kalau tadi arsip-arsipnya mungkin lebih bersifat fisik gitu ya, surat-surat, batik, peta, peta jalur perdagangan gitu, atau kalau teman-teman kawan pustaha misalnya mengumpulkan manuskrip dan melacak di mana manuskrip-manuskrip dari yang dibawa pada masa kolonial gitu. Nah, saya kira ini juga bisa kita hubungkan bagaimana arsip-arsip yang bersifat non-objek gitu. Karena sebagian besar lagu-lagu perlawanan atau lagu-lagu tradisi yang digunakan oleh pejuang masa lalu gitu ya untuk melawan itu biasanya tidak tercatat gitu. Mungkin semua ingat di kepala, tetapi itu lebih bersifat non-material. So I try to connect also our morning session today, because there is one session about conservation and archive, where presented by some of the communities that they started to taking care of their own archive without really supported by the government, or not really initiated by formal institutions. So it's interesting how the practice of archiving and taking care, conserve the archive, really coming from the grassroots movement. So that is the object, but what you present maybe is also interesting to be compared, because like the songs mostly is more intangible. It's not something that taking form as an object, but it stays in the memory of the people. Like all the song become really part of collective memory. Silakan. Nanti ngantuk. Oh, Nancy.
Yeah, thank you so much, first of all, Murph, for your beautiful talk. I really enjoyed that. And I loved also how you made connections with different parts of Southeast Asia. I think it's super important that you did that. So yeah, to connect also what Alia was saying, and then connecting it to what I'm trying to do in the Netherlands. Yeah, I think so what we're trying to do with catching memories of Mambasak and the Black Brothers, for instance, in a diaspora, I think is sort of also enacting an archive, so a living archive that is enacted, and through that a meaning-making process again takes place that strengthens, amplifies rather the importance of such a story, such an archive. I think that's one, and automatically that also means indeed that new generations will make it their own in their own way, which is great, because then it will never be static in that sense. And one of the conclusions I made yesterday, and this is I think also important, I was wondering, and then bring it back to Murph, and as a question also maybe, in the context of the Netherlands where a diaspora lives that finds this music important, the first generation, the second generation, but the third and the fourth are already forgetting it, right? But what you see in general is that for Papuans, wherever, material and immaterial culture are as important. But if you look at the Netherlands has the largest Papuan material culture in possession. It's the largest collection in the world, larger than Australia or the Rockefeller estate or what have you. So there's definitely a hierarchy in the Netherlands, I would say, from material objects compared to immaterial objects, which I would include music too, right? So what's your take on that, the connection between material and immaterial culture, also in connection to a diaspora? I don't know if that's a very vague question, but I'm really curious about that. But that's something we're definitely working on right now in the Netherlands. Also in light of, for instance, a big exhibition that is coming on this, Papuan culture and the material culture, and look at us having this great collection. And whereas, we feel that, the material culture is more important than we as a community, actually, So there's this weird disconnect also, and it is about power also. So I don't know. Sorry, this was very long, but I was curious.
So for the two projects I presented, it's very different. For the Manobo, their material culture, a lot of it is also in various collections around the world, but the research is very limited. So we focused the project on basically aspects of intangible cultural heritage, the different sonic vocabularies that are not necessarily linguistic or musical, which fall through the cracks of research. So it was in this way we feel that the project could also contribute to a larger like discourse, academic discourse, and also from a more pragmatic sense, also lend itself to teaching younger generations of Manobo and Tinanadan youth who might not even go back to their homelands. So it's an aspect of their culture which maybe some people might like otherwise undermine or not take for granted. So it was like a contribution towards this larger like world building or world recovery for the people of the Pantaron range. Like for the other one, it's a bit more straightforward. It's like it's so those the large data set from Paradon is well taken care of. It's well studied. There's like a PhD researcher looking after this, like Theo Gonsalves who's a Filipino American researcher curator at the Smithsonian, is like looking into this and maybe coming up with several books. And then also the banned songs from Hong Kong are still around. I mean, it's a bit more recent, this history. What maybe we're fighting against now is the erosion of this memory from an agency as world affairs come into different world affairs come into fore now. It's not anymore in the news cycle, but that doesn't mean that like the 17 or 18-year-olds who were arrested during the protests in the during the lockdown period, they're still languishing in jail. But it was also a means to address this in the Hong Kong context. Like, how do you get through censorship? And speak to an audience that was local. I think that was one of the creative ways you can do it. It's like how forms of abstraction actually like can be a strategy to go through censors. No one went out, so this wasn't. No one went to jail, so it was good. Well, I mean, in terms of diaspora, it's a different. Well, maybe also related to Papua situation because, like, several Manobo and indigenous rights activists from the Philippines had to go to exile. I met a few of them recently in Germany because a church organization granted them sanctuary and went through the motions of getting them like paperwork for it. But it's an ongoing migration. Like the Philippines is under the new Marcos regime. If for those who don't know, the Philippines was under a dictatorship which coincided with the Suharto dictatorship, all backed by the CIA, 1965. Ours was a little shorter. Yours was 65 to 98. Ours was 65 to 86. But we have the part 2 of Marcos now. Now you have your general. We have it's Marcos's son. So I think one of the things that we're fighting is during the Duterte regime, which preceded this new which paved the way for this new Marcos regime, they killed a lot of the activists that were actually reporting on indigenous issues, on things that were not happening in the major cities. So, and then wiping out basically like one of the biggest news channels, ABS-CBN, in 2020, pretty much paved the way for a media blackout. So a lot of this is not in the news cycle, and so activists who are slowly getting exiled of the Philippines, only other activists know that they're there, they're leaving, right? So yeah, and in the case of Hong Kong, it's pretty similar, because you can, as much as possible, you shouldn't have any news coverage of your departure, because you risk detention at the airports.
Ya, tadi Murph sempat menyebutkan satu konteks yang menarik ya, bagaimana lagu-lagu ini juga sebenarnya bisa jadi di satu sisi simbol perlawanan, tapi juga menjadi cara untuk menyiasati censorship, atau kalau di masa lalu banyak juga lagu-lagu revolusi ini yang kemudian dilarang gitu ya. Jadi mungkin saya mengundang teman-teman muda di sini mungkin yang kemarin terlibat dalam merencanakan demo-demo atau yang terlibat di gerakan-gerakan terbaru, mungkin bisa tidak harus menanggapi presentasi Murph secara langsung atau menghubungkan dengan kuliah Bu Nancy kemarin, tapi bisa berbagi pengalaman juga tentang bagaimana lagu-lagu ini bisa menjadi satu spirit perlawanan gitu. Kalau saya ingat juga ada di tahun 2015 misalnya, waktu itu Biennale Jogja untuk pembukaan pertama kalinya, ibu-ibu dialita misalnya manggung di depan publik yang luas gitu ya. Jadi menggunakan juga lagu-lagu sebagai sebuah cara untuk di satu sisi merawat ingatan mereka sendiri, tetapi di sisi yang lain juga memperpanjang usia perlawanan melalui cerita-cerita bagaimana lagu-lagu itu ditulis ketika para tahanan politik berada di penjara, dan selama di penjara mereka nggak bisa memainkan lagu-lagu itu gitu. Baru setelah mereka keluar, mereka keluarganya kemudian membentuk paduan suara ini dan menjadikan paduan suara lagu-lagu sebagai cara untuk kemudian mengajak generasi muda mengingat kembali sejarah, menuliskan sejarah dalam versi mereka sendiri yang selama ini sudah sangat termanipulasi oleh versi negara gitu ya. Jadi boleh teman-teman yang lain berbagi tentang apa sih ingatan kalian gitu ya tentang lagu-lagu dan konteks politik gitu. Kalau dulu ada lagu di teman-teman pasti tahu ya, ada lagu juga yang secara nasional di band, lagu Genjer-Genjer misalnya gitu. Dan sekarang baru aja tiba-tiba itu aku sering dengar jadi playset di DJ gitu ya, di meja-meja DJ gitu. Jadi untuk generasiku wow gitu. Ya, Rifki silakan.
Hi, my name Ape. I want to ask just a little question. So there is one time, so I'm working with my friends, making playlists. It's titled Playlist as Cultural Form in YouTube, and invited a group of friends to join to make playlists to talking about protest song or a song that makes you imagine a better future. And the most of the song is the songs that using lyrics, and there are more contemporary also version of the protest song, like girl generation song also in Korea used as a kind of a protest song. So I wonder, like, because if we think about the lyrics or the song itself, and again, like Alia also said about Genjer Genjer, we could pick up the song from the like melody, but also from the lyrics. and so the how to also identify the song. So we know this is the songs. So I wonder why you choose opacity, or in terms of translate it into another like voice or another sounds like monsoon and rain. So because it becomes signals like the title of the exhibition. I wonder, uh, aside from to counter censorship, do you have another reason? Because maybe it's also turned into another code. So we need to decode those kind of yeah signals. So I wonder, like, can we also preserve the way we want to preserve these kind of songs, or knowing about these songs, or what these songs relate to, if we turn it into some codes that need to be decoded? Okay, is it clear enough?
Yes, thank you. Happy.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Well, so along with this, as part of the exhibition, actually, the data set was, you can download it. It was a playlist, so you can hear it as music as well. So it was, we weren't like even like the list of the songs were there, so the information was there, so you can access them as songs. Um, but it was really also an experiment, as you said, how to uh, how could you use these emergent technologies like AI to transform something. So it was an experiment in that sense, like, what are the transformative capabilities of this, how would another, like, non-human intelligence interpret it, like, could you make sense of it, and how will that also be in how could that relate to larger conversations about power, um, and also I think by the act of transmutation was one of the things, like transmutation as a means to get through sensors was one of the main impulses, like and also using rain and like monsoons as a metaphor for revolutions of both destruction and renewal. um so the tactic was more poetic. It was not really an act of preservation or archiving. It was more of an experiment in how else can you experience a forbidden archive, right? Like something that you like, because because it was abstracted, you wouldn't know that some banned songs were used in the data set. Although it will just like, but you have a block of text that would say it, but if you were it was too obscure to be to be spotted. No, it's actually like it wasn't a machine. It's very simple. I mean, it's a program developed by earcom, uh called Rave. um so you upload the material, you use you upload it on a Google Drive, and then the AI learns it after a few days or weeks, and then you come up with like a file without, and then and it's, yeah, it's not there's no flashy machinery or anything. It's like it's just code. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hello. My name is Tuti. I'm from ISI Yogyakarta, and in advance, I'm going to appreciate the presentation that you presented earlier about your project. It's really amazing, and I have something to ask you about. When creating music about the protest movement and how it will bring the energy about the protest or the revolution itself, could be mostly music has something that is structured based on the harmony and whatnot, but when you translate it into another element like storm, have you ever tried to make it yourself without the AI? And when you translate the music to the AI, what's the creative process behind it? Because probably the AI generated machine has a particular way to create things, like how language-based AI could has some program code, and how you know that, how can you tell that the storm voice is enough to presentate the music protest movement, and what's the creative process and how you dialogue within the storm voice that could be enough for it to translate it from the music from the protest movement? I think that's the question.
Thank you. So it involved a lot of trial and error. Anyway, I'll try to put this here. Okay, can't. Because so the software was actually developed for music, so it didn't really know what to do with non-music, like storms. It was a different. It was something that the sound AI wasn't really trained or programmed for. So you had it. It involved a lot of trial and error, in the sense that, because it didn't know what to make sense, how to make sense of it. So actually, the initial attempts, they just sounded like noise. So what I needed to do was basically simplify the selection of the music. So from a large data set of over like 300 recordings, 300 songs, you had to simplify 3 hours of a specific kind of genre, for example, like things that were more recognizable and readable by the machine. But that also meant that you're basically also exposing the limitations of the programming. For those who are interested, you can download it. It's free. This is the rave. You just get it off from GitHub. And because what do I say?
Can I jump in a bit,
Okay,
or
okay.
you want to continue?
No, go.
Just to continue to this question, or like maybe putting it in another direction, is like what is the difference why also you decide to use AI instead of, for example, making more like analog programming, using the music from the archive? I mean, I think she also asks, what is
yes.
the difference of using the machine as like the technology as the equipments, while when you are an artist and working with the archive, you have like the sense of the emotion, intimacy, your subjectivity, and your memory that it's embodied in your act of creating something. Well, when you leave it to the machine, then the machine will proceed according to his own logic. So how do you somehow compare these two methods, using the technology and while artists working with somehow their embodied methodology?
I think that because the challenge was how to translate it to something not musical, and you can't play rain. It's yeah. How do you play a typhoon? It's we don't. I don't have the instruments for that. I've thought of using analog synthesizers, modular synthesizers for this, but it was an experiment in how to use like a technology like this into something it was actually not really built for, like, but you know, another sonic phenomenon. Like it was an experiment into transforming like a musical phenomena to like a natural sonic phenomena, like the sound of a storm. Um, and because it's easier to translate like musical material into other musical material, because then you're using more conventional means. But it was an experiment into testing the technologies and like into maybe weirder ends and other possibilities. But then you also expose the limits of it, because the fact that the material, the AI was trained on music, it was actually still looking for a kind of structure, because rain was like, you know, just it's rain and storms, no, it's a different sonic phenomena. It didn't follow like a set meter. It didn't follow like scales or like like chords. so so it was also a test in the for the AI how to like deal with it. Um, but that also meant that you were working towards a possible bias already. The fact that I had to simplify the material into to something else, like I can't train it on a larger data set that would be different languages and different genres of music, because that will be the result would be too chaotic. It can't translate into to the sound of rain anymore, but it could possibly translate to a new musical genre. But that wasn't the idea, or that wasn't the desired effect for the project. Um, but just to react also to Ape, because he mentioned the girls' generation. I think I think that's an interesting kind of like playlist idea. For my playlist, it was very limited. It was only really playing to a particular like archive, to particular songs. So it was very fixed. But then, of course, like, you know, in the larger conversation of what is a protest song or a protest music, then you could have anyone from maybe NWA to Fela Kuti there, or, you know, Girls' Generation. But unfortunately, that wasn't the drive of this particular project.
Naomi?
Ya, aku pakai bahasa Indonesia dulu biar cepet ya. Sambil aku kayak thinking out loud, it's better for me to do it in Indonesian. So later I will try to translate it in English, or Alia can also help me. Mungkin tadi menarik menurutku ketika kemudian yang problematisasinya di sebenarnya itu sudah mulai jadi problematisasi yang umum tentang penggunaan AI gitu ya di dalam satu proses penciptaan karya. Ketika pertanyaannya kalau kenapa tidak kamu lakukan sendiri gitu, kenapa labor penciptaan proses kreatif itu tidak dikerjakan sendiri, atau kalau misalnya dengan artisan atau apa, jadi kenapa itu diserahkan kepada teknologi gitu yang seperti kemudian melepaskan agensi pencipta di dalam, karena kita percaya bahwa dalam proses penciptaan itu proses membuat itu sendiri adalah bagian dari menciptakan gitu ya. Tapi mungkin itu jadi agak cukup umum gitu problematisasi itu atas kecenderungan penggunaan AI sekarang, yang aku kira kalau yang aku pahami dari presentasinya Murph itu yang proses penciptaannya itu lebih pada bagaimana dia membuat konsep yang kemudian justru seperti yang dia jelaskan tadi, buat dia tidak cukup menantang ketika itu dikerjakan, maksudnya kayak dikerjakan dengan tanpa AI gitu ya, karena dia juga menyadari ada fungsi gitu, fungsi agensi seniman yang kemudian dipasrahkan ke dalam bagaimana teknologi itu memproses, dan karena dia udah tahu bahwa ini ada musik-musik perjuangan nih gitu. Terus itu mau dikodekan gitu, dikodekan ke dalam sesuatu yang bagi dia akan lebih abstrak atau bahasanya lebih puitis gitu ya. Itu dengan menghubungkannya dengan hujan, dengan monsun, dengan dengan badai gitu ya. Dan aku kira itu kalau sebagai satu inisiatif gitu ya, inisiatif satu konsep atas karya itu sangat menarik ketika dia upayanya itu adalah membuat itu menjadi bahasa yang lebih bisa karena tadi kata kuncinya juga dibantu oleh Nancy, dia nyebut tentang diaspora gitu, tentang bagaimana arsip itu ada di satu tempat dan bagaimana dia kemudian bisa ditranskripsikan kembali gitu dia jadi satu gerakan yang lebih transnasional gitu, jadi ada upaya untuk mencari bahasa universal, dan AI itu barangkali hujan gitu, dan itu barangkali jadi sesuatu yang menarik menurutku gitu, karena misalnya tadi kalau aku mendengarkan cuplikannya itu seperti kita mendengar memang seperti kalau ketika aku mendengarkan suara hujan atau deru gelombang, dan aku teringat lagu Salam Harapan misalnya dari Dialita gitu. Ketika aku jadi suara alam yang kemudian mengingatkanku kepada degup jantung gerakan massa misalnya kayak gitu. Jadi itu menurutku itu ada di level konseptual memang gitu. Jadi aku sendiri berpikir untuk tidak memproblematisasi kenapa memilih pakai AI gitu, karena dia artis inisiatif gitu. Dia menginisiasi gagasan untuk kemudian mengkodekan kumpulan lagu-lagu ini jadi suara hujan gitu kan, jadi suara hujan, suara gemuruh badai gitu, yang kemudian dengan satu dan banyak cara barangkali dia sebagaimana puisi dia menghasilkan emosi itu gitu. Dan kalau tadi jawabannya untuk pertanyaan tentang gimana itu kalau kenapa dikodein, terus harusnya berarti kan itu jadiin kode, jadi ada tugas untuk decoding gitu. Aku kalau bayanganku itu yang mungkin anak generasi sekarang suka gitu melakukan itu gitu. Jadi kayak ini di breakdown ini terdiri dari apa aja sih gitu kan. Si bunyi badai ini itu ternyata dia sendiri kan ngasih akses gitu untuk bisa mengetahui itu berasal dari apa, dan dari situ kemudian kita bisa mengakses lagu-lagu perjuangan itu gitu. Jadi menurutku itu menarik banget gitu, menarik banget seperti jadi prosesnya memang kalau harapan dia itu puitis gitu, buat aku sendiri ketika aku membayangkannya itu juga emang berlangsungnya seperti itu. Jadi kayak emosi yang kamu bilang tadi itu emang itu gimana ya? Dari yang rendered kemudian kita personalisasikan lagi, tapi itu up dari, karena mungkin ini emang nggak harus misalnya lagu-lagu perjuangan itu begitu dia menjadi satu kenangan gitu, kita perlu juga untuk orang-orang yang sekarang gitu, yang kita bukan penciptanya, bukan orang yang menghidupinya gitu pada waktu itu emang perlu dibantu dengan proses pelacakan seperti itu gitu loh, kayak yang ya dari yang abstrak, dari yang puisi kemudian decode gitu. Menurutku itu justru yang menarik gitu, dan dia menurutku sebagai artis inisiatif untuk ide ini gitu, bukan bikin. Dan buat aku I think it's music. The apa itunya si hasilnya itu musik gitu. Musik dalam pengertian enggak ya, bukan dalam pengertian melodi yang konvensional gitu. Dan kita juga bisa mengisi teksnya dengan narasi kita sendiri yang kalau ketika kita merasa relate gitu ya. Gitu. Kamu yang Inggrisin ya? Ternyata panjang soalnya.
In a short way,
Ya.
she give her affirmation that she can understand why in the end like you choose to work with technology, because for her also it's not only to create a speculative result. When you leave the result to the machine, then somehow you design it, but maybe the result can be very abstract or not really being anticipated. But at the same time, the sense of the poetic, the metaphor, the symbolism, the abstraction is also the attraction to the younger generation today. Not to just romanticizing the revolutionary songs, but like to decode as well. And also, ini reinterpretasi aja kan. And also for her, the importance of the artist agency is in the conceptualizations, like the process to make the concept like to be transmitted to the AI machine instead of like working in the analog methods or working with artisans. So the agency is how do you compose the concept working, because you select the song, you already imagine that the song can be translated into the sound of the rain. Yeah. So actually, she's agree. I mean, like she appreciated in the end, like working with AI can also expand the imagination about this revolutionary song.
Thank you. Sorry. But just to add, I think because it was an experiment, you didn't know what the results were going to be. Well, it was a over a period of weeks. The idea the process had to go undergo a process of refinement. But in the end, you had something that was actually something what do you call this? Something that was actually familiar. If I knew that like after spending a few months trying to program it and train it, that it will just sound like people walking in the rain, then I could have just recorded people walking in the rain. But you took the longer way out. No, like because you didn't because it was an experiment, and what else could you do with AI technology, with these emergent technology? You actually didn't know what the output could have been, and because the trial outputs were so awful, because they just basically sounded like noise, it was also a means to make it acceptable or tolerable in an exhibition space in a way that's experiential and familiar. But then an aspect that I would have wanted to do if there was more time and I had the technical skills was, what if you had another AI that could decode the materials that you would hear in the space? Like, what if, you had a phone that could identify that, hey, this is AI. I can translate it back to music, but I didn't have the time or the technical skills to do that. Not for this project, but maybe for later on.
Like to collect different kind of this revolutionary rain song and make it a new song about it.
Yeah, but that's
So
that's a
back to back.
yeah. Yeah, from how to recode it back to from rain and like storm phenomena to something musical.
Ya, mungkin satu pertanyaan lagi. Ya, yang di belakang aku nggak kelihatan, mungkin aku kenal nggak?
Okay. Siapa namanya? Okay. Hey, Marks. My name is Brenda. So, things that I get from your presentations, I think the aims of your project is to preserve the memory of the revolutions and also to pass on the message to the young generation who is not live in the moment when the revolution happens. But how do you gonna tell the message of each song, and how do you gonna pass on the message when when I heard two of your project doesn't have any lyrics, because as for revolutions, I think it took as many it's need as many people as to understand the message of the revolutions that is being conveyed. In my experience, I came from Bali, and then in Bali we have like one song that they used to reject or resist from a project of reclamation in Teluk Benoa, and then they use like the most simple language, so everyone's, not only the part of the activist or the academia, will understand about what they're going to talk about and then what they are reject on the project. So how are you gonna pass the message if the song or the project that you produce needs to be what is tell yeah needs to be interpreted with like high understanding about the issues, because I think the songs for revolutions need to speak in many people language, so many people would be understand about the message that you gonna deliver. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. As as um as propaganda, both projects failed because I think with the project with the indigenous collective, it only circulates until now within exhibitionary contemporary art contexts. So now there is a desire to make something like more direct propaganda. How do you translate this into something that's more relatable, so you could actually expose the issue more? So now the collective is deciding to make a series of films. So films are more, they have higher circulation. You can watch them on your phone. They can go to film festivals. So it's going to explore different avenues of circulation that hopefully would gather more attention to this issue. Unfortunately, this first one, the current iteration that it has is too, like you said, it's too high contemporary art, and it only really speaks to a other contemporary art audience. And with the other project, I think with the revolutionary music, it was really an experiment. It's not so because you are using musics from different languages from across the world. There's no one way to understand them unless you translate everything into, for this particular context, Cantonese, and translating them to Cantonese for that particular exhibition would risk closure of the exhibition. So that might not happen here, for example, but it would certainly happen there. So it was designed to be abstract, so to explore other avenues, like how else can revolutionary music be experienced, but also what happens after the revolutionary moment? What happens after the storm? And this is a question and I have no answer for this. And it's a question that sits with a lot of other activists and people, because I think there's too much attention on that particular rupture. The revolution has all the drama, has all the attention, but what do you do afterwards, right? Like the society building or the reforms, or what happens if, for example, the revolution failed. So these are the sitting questions, and these are lingering questions that I don't have easy answers for. But in terms of like music as music and music as proliferation, then I think there's more success into like translation of these songs as songs into different languages. But also because these are more or less archival materials, they were maybe revolutionary in form for those particular moments, but they are now maybe very boring, like to new generations who are like more into hip hop, for example, or metal, which I think would be interesting avenues to explore. Like there are like metal and punk bands in the Philippines who are interpreting, or even like some hip hop artists who are interpreting like revolutionary songs from the Philippine, from Philippine history, to translate them into for a younger generation, so that it's not stuck, because the issues, unfortunately, a lot of the issues are the same, like the 60s and the 70s and 2024. A lot of the corrupt politicians, environmental degradation, indigenous abuse. These are still ongoing issues, but how to make them relevant to a younger generation is and to also keep these issues active and relevant would also mean a radical reinvestigation and revitalization of the forms they originally are from.
Thank you. Big applause for Murph for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Murph. Terima kasih juga untuk teman-teman yang sudah berbagi, sudah menyampaikan responnya. Saya kira ada banyak hal dari presentasi Murph malam ini yang sangat berhubungan dengan diskusi-diskusi kita sebelumnya ya. Kayak tadi selain soal bagaimana kita mengarsipkan, kemudian pada saat yang sama ada dorongan, ada tuntutan untuk mengaktifkan memori dan mengaktifkan arsip itu sendiri sehingga dia lebih punya kedekatan atau kalau istilahnya Murph barusan relevansi dengan apa yang terjadi hari ini. Lalu juga saya kira ini juga beresonansi dengan diskusi tentang digital aktivisme siang tadi di sesi ketiga tadi, di mana kita sudah melihat Ruli misalnya bekerja dengan proyek untuk membangun sebuah peradaban di mana dia berspekulasi atas bahasa, atas pengetahuan, spiritualisme, arsitektur gitu kan, atau dari proyek Mas Andreas di mana narasi-narasi tentang 65 kemudian dikumpulkan, direaktivasi melalui berbagai forum baru. Jadi saya kira percakapan selanjutnya tentang apakah kemudian cara untuk menginterpretasi atau mentranslasi, menampilkan ulang material-material arsip ini yang pada awalnya mungkin lebih punya nilai propaganda gitu ya. Ketika kita bicara tentang lagu-lagu perlawanan, lagu-lagu revolusi, biasanya memang diciptakan untuk membuat orang bergerak, terdorong untuk melawan gitu. Tetapi pada saat yang sama ketika revolusinya, tadi dia bilang gitu ya, ketika itu sudah berlalu 20 tahun kemudian, jangan-jangan dorongan perlawanannya, emosinya tidak lagi sama atau tidak lagi dirasakan dengan cara yang sama oleh generasi sekarang gitu. Jadi pergeseran dari kata-kata yang langsung menjadi sesuatu yang lebih metafora, lebih abstrak, itu saya kira juga menjadi bagian untuk mencoba mencari posisionalitas, tapi juga pada saat yang sama membuatnya menjadi lebih punya relevansi dengan kehidupan sekarang. Lalu ngomong juga soal bahasa, bahwa ada banyak sekali, pengalaman saya juga ada banyak sekali perlawanan di berbagai daerah yang muncul dalam lagu-lagu di masyarakat ulayat gitu ya, yang dimunculkan memang menggunakan bahasa lokal masing-masing, dan itu seringkali kalau saya mendengar itu juga nggak mengerti. Tetapi ada satu ruang di mana ketidakmengertian itu, situasi ketika kita tidak tahu, justru juga bisa membangkitkan semacam keinginan untuk kemudian lebih terlibat gitu. Jadi saya kira tadi Murph juga mengatakan bahwa dua proyek ini kalau dibilang sebagai proyek propaganda, bisa jadi itu proyek yang gagal gitu, karena memang dia tidak meniatkan itu ya sebagai menciptakan lagu perjuangan yang baru, tetapi justru membongkar ulang maknanya membangun empati, membangun perlawanan atau mencari koneksi dengan arsip sejarah untuk masa sekarang. Gitu aja mungkin. Terima kasih sekali untuk teman-teman yang hadir malam ini. Thank you so much for all the attendees and also for Murph. We still have some food here, so we still can be here and hang out a little bit, and see you for the last day tomorrow 9 o'clock in the art school. Jadi sampai ketemu lagi besok di sesi terakhir dari Simposium Khatulistiwa Mupakara. Kita mulai jam 9 pagi di ruang Ajiyasa, Fakultas apa sih? Fakultas Seni Rupa dan Desain di ISI. Terima kasih semuanya, selamat malam.
Boleh dong tepuk tangannya sekali lagi. Kalau ini tepuk tangannya belum makan. Tepuk tangan yang sudah makan kayak gimana? Coba 1, 2, 3. Luar biasa, terima kasih. Terima kasih kepada Mbak Alia dan juga Murph Espina yang sudah membawakan diskusi dengan sangat luar biasa. Teman-teman, sedikit informasi setelah acara ditutup, kami himbau dan kami informasikan kepada para peserta wajib untuk dapat melakukan registrasi ulang di meja registrasi. Sekali lagi kami informasikan kepada para peserta wajib untuk melakukan registrasi ulang di meja registrasi. Bapak dan Ibu, demikian rangkaian acara hari kedua. Luar biasa, tepuk tangan untuk kita semua. Sudah dari tadi pagi mengikuti rangkaian acara yang luar biasa. Sembari berfoto bersama moderator dan keynote speaker pada malam hari ini, kami mengucapkan terima kasih kepada penyelenggara Simposium Khatulistiwa 2024 Mupakara Kerja Perawatan sebagai Praktik Solidaritas. Kami mengucapkan terima kasih kepada Yayasan Biennale Yogyakarta dengan dukungan Kementerian Pendidikan, Kebudayaan, Riset, dan Teknologi Indonesia, Dana Indonesiana, Lembaga Pengelola Dana Pendidikan, Dinas Kebudayaan Daerah Istimewa Yogyakarta, Taman Budaya Yogyakarta, Paniradia Keistimewaan, Universitas Negeri Yogyakarta, Institut Seni Indonesia Yogyakarta, dan tentunya Kampung Mataraman. Kami juga mengucapkan terima kasih kepada media partner yang mendukung acara Simposium Khatulistiwa 2024. Kami mengucapkan terima kasih kepada Buku Seni Rupa Harian Jogja, LPM Ekspresi, Magdalene, Moyang.co, Radar Jogja, Visiting Jogja, dan LPM Natas. Tentunya kami mengucapkan terima kasih dan apresiasi yang luar biasa kepada seluruh audiens pada malam hari ini. Kalau tadi tepuk tangannya belum makan. Kalau tepuk tangan yang udah makan kayak yang tadi, gimana? Coba diulangi lagi. Baik, terima kasih, sampai bertemu kembali di esok hari di Gedung Ajiyasa Institut Seni Yogyakarta pukul 9.30. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.